Today, for my Golden Globe, I'd like to thank you all. No, we're not doing Golden Globes today. Today, we're gonna learn a little bit about the history of Chromoly BMX forks. Fork what? No, not fork you. BMX fork. This is what we're gonna learn about today. Oh my God, those are bad dad jokes. But today, we're gonna put a fork in it, because this is what we're gonna learn about is BMX forks. Come on in.
Yeah, dude.
All right, guys, so back in 1989, when we first started doing the Supercross BMX frames, obviously when we had a frame, we had to have a fork. When we started off doing fork, we started off doing a Chromoly fork. Chromoly fork, when we first started off doing one, was a very basic fork. It was Chromoly leg, Chromoly steer tube, Chromoly dropout, super simple. Back then, we didn't have a threaded in top cap. We actually had a threaded steer tube. This is one of the 26-inch versions of it. It holds true to the heritage of what we were doing back in 1989. This uses a 1 1/8 straight gauge 049 Chromoly leg, uses a 1 1/8 Chromoly steer tube. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that we have race for your bottom bearing on. A lot of fork companies will weld this bottom race all the way around. When you weld this bottom race all the way around, you end up with a stress zone. You end up with a heat riser. So what you're doing is you're causing an embrittlement area where the steer tube would break. A lot of forks back in the day, what they would do to try and save that from being a problem is they would either make the steer tube thicker, or they would actually machine in their race with, again, a thicker part. By doing that, it would end up with a heavier fork. What we did is we would just press the race on. By pressing the race on, we would have it welded on where just the fork leg welds onto the steer tube. So this bottom bearing race is always in place, holding your bearing on straight. You've got your fork legs in place, and you don't end up with that stress riser. So that way the fork would hold true a lot stronger and a lot longer. We've always done a full post-weld heat treatment on our forks. Not a lot of companies have done a post-weld heat treatment on their forks. By doing the post-weld heat treatment on their fork, we end up with a stronger fork, we end up with a lighter fork. This is something that a lot of early fork companies did. Redline back in the day used to do it just on their higher end fork. Race Inc. used to do it back in the day on their higher end fork. A lot of companies got away from it just because of the cost. It costs a lot more to end up heat treating the fork. There was also a lot of scrap on the heat treated forks. And the reason there was a lot of scrap is the heat treating would kind of twist the fork, it would shock the fork, and it would keep it from being straight. So we always did our forks in a fixture, and by doing the fork in a fixture, it would hold the fork straighter. Took a lot more time, took a lot more effort on everybody's part to make sure that the fork was gonna be held straight and true. But it ended up giving you a lighter fork, a stronger fork, and something that you could really depend on. With our Chromoly forks, we've known that it's been something that you could always depend on and would keep your bike running straight and true. So with this fork, we've always been around 28 ounces, roughly 1 pound, 12 ounces on a Chromoly fork. To try and do something a little bit lighter, in about 2001, we started doing a tapered leg and a butted steer tube. At that point, we also started doing the welded in star nut. So by doing in the welded in star nut, you didn't have to deal with the press-in A-head nuts anymore. We still had the pressed on bottom race. It was only welded on where the fork leg would go on. We did a little bit of a smaller dropout. We did some holes. And by doing that, we ended up with a much lighter fork. These Pro LT forks were 24 ounces, so roughly 1 pound, 8 ounces. These were for riders 170 pounds and under, although we've had a lot of riders that were heavier than these run these. It was something by doing a butted leg and a tapered leg. The fork leg would start off at 1 1/8, taper down to 1 inch. The fork leg up here would start off at an 0.65, taper down to an 0.35. By doing that, you have a lot more strength up at the crown, a little bit thinner down at the dropouts where you don't need the strength. We really tried to move fork legs along in the technology of it. This fork's been copied by a lot of people. There's a lot of people who have taken our Pro LT fork and just straight up copied it and turned it into their own version. From there, we went to the SLT, and the SLT is what we've called the super version of the LT. With this, we've actually done a cold forged, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's a cold forged steer tube. On this cold forged steer tube, we actually for once did start doing a machined on race. And part of the reason that we did the machined on race is this steer tube is a spiral flute. By doing the spiral fluting, the steer tube is butted and tapered, has a spiral rifle flute that goes through the steer tube. So by doing that, it's thicker, thinner, thicker, thinner, thicker, thinner in a spiral fluting. We did have this race machined on. It's very thin. The legs get welded on. Again, it starts off at 1 1/8, tapers down to 1 inch. Actually, excuse me, this is 1 1/4 where it starts up here. Smaller dropout. This is a 27-ounce fork. No rider weight limit on it. Again, the welded in top cap. This fork, anybody can ride it. Trails, track, pump track, anything that you need. Now, with the advancement of tapered head tubes on your race frames, going from 1 1/8 to 1.5, everybody's wanted a tapered steer tube on their fork. So we've done that with the SLT now. We finally did a huge bulge butt, which sounds kind of funny, a bulge butt. Why do you need a bulge butt? I don't want a bulge butt. For your fork, we've got a bulge butt for your steer tube. So with this, you've got a 1.5 as it comes out of the bottom of your steer tube. Again, it's a tapered, butted steer tube. All of these forks still have the post-weld heat treat that we've been doing. You have your welded in star nut. You have your tapered legs. We now have our 20 mil dropouts, and we've been starting to now stamp on the 2023 models of the forks. We've got the Supercross SX logo being stamped into the baloney cut. This is a little bit of an homage to the old SE landing gear forks where they had the SE logo stamped in. We've seen so many of our forks taken where people have taken the Supercross sticker off and put on another logo that we just figured, hey, you know what, go ahead, take the sticker off, put on your own logo, whatever you want to do with that SX stamp in there now. So this is where the fork has evolved to now. So guys, in a quick recap, with the Supercross Chromoly forks, it seems like things haven't changed a whole lot when we've gone from 1989 era of fork all the way up to 2023 era of fork. But as you can see, going from a straight leg, straight steer tube to a tapered butted leg and a tapered butted steer tube, there's been a lot of evolvement from a traditional 3/8 dropout to the 20 millimeter dropout. Again, they're chromoly forks. They're gonna do the same thing. Depends upon the bike that you're riding and what you're trying to do. If you're gonna be riding one of the nice classic retro bike, if you've got a bike going for a more classic look, you're gonna wanna go with the SX 250 fork. If you're hitting the pump tracks hard, you're hitting the trails hard, you're hitting the racetrack hard, you're not quite ready to advance up to a carbon fork, you're not a carbon fork guy, you're not ready to jump on the ultimate and go for the super light trick carbon fork, which feels like a feather. I mean, this still at 27 ounces, 22 ounces. I mean, you're saving almost half a pound by going to carbon. There's still a lot of people who prefer a nice chromoly fork. And that's where we've taken this to really try and advance it to be the best thing for you. Now with the tapered steer tube, you've got no reason that you can't throw it on your race bike, can't throw it on your pump track bike, can't throw it on your trails bike. Everything's been evolving. Been a constant involvement in everything in life, and BMX forks have done that as well. So again, you've got your BMX fork with the races where it's pressed on, just welded on where the fork legs go. And now you've got the machined on races where it's tapered in, tapered steer tube. Things have really changed. So guys, BMX fork technology, as you can see, has changed a lot over the years. Same time, as much as it's changed, it's really remained the same. It's all about you, your friends, your bike, out at the trails, out at the track, having a good time. It's all about creating the memories while you're riding your bike. If you can get out there and ride, doesn't matter which fork you pick, doesn't matter if you're an old school guy, doesn't matter if you're the full modern guy, doesn't matter what you decide. Go out, ride your bike today. Get out there, go ride. Let's do this. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, tell your friends. If this has been something that you've been learning a little bit about and you want to learn something more, put it down in the comments. Tell us what you'd like to hear about. We want to make sure we put out the best content for you. Hope you guys have a great day.